Okay, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It's the 31st of July, the very last day of the month. So very important as we begin today's call to have that quick reminder that it's important that we tick all the boxes for our qualifications for the month of July. If you haven't seen already, there was a special announcement that was given out. Anyone that does 500 PV in the month of July does get free shipping in the month of August. So please make sure that you capitalize on that. Of course, this also helps encourage us towards Team Kaizen qualification too. So very worthwhile making sure that we stay abreast of all of the incentives that are available. But that one's a good one. So let's be sure to do that. We come back as we get together on this call today. Of course, there are a number of us that are here having just come back from Orlando. You can see my sunglasses suntan on my face from when I managed to get outside for just a few hours after the event to try to relax and to rest and get a little sunburned, as the British are inclined to do. When there is an ounce of sun that comes out, we jump on it, we grab it for the quick chance that we have. So I want to take some time today just to share some highlights and have those that were in attendance perhaps share some of the highlights from Orlando that they got out of it. This could be from formal instruction that took place during the course of the event, the instruction that was given from stage. It may be as a result of building friendships and connecting with individuals and meeting new people while you were there and what that has done to help you. It may be the result of you sitting quietly in your hotel room, planning and reflecting and making notes and what have you, as a result of what you've learned, and having some of that quiet time to reflect and coming back with some purpose and some driven and some further clarity on what you're wanting to achieve. So I'd like to open the floor up, if that's okay, and have an open discussion to this end. And I will conclude. I've got some thoughts that I'd like to share as well, some of my own takeaways, which have been I'm really grateful for. So anyone willing to kickstart this and get us going? I know there's a few here on the call today that were at the event. So please don't be shy, of course. Connie, you're raising your hand. Go for it.
It was an absolutely fabulous event. So well planned, so organized, packed to the top with information, and I loved the round tables. It gives you a chance to ask specific questions to leaders. Bernie said, make your vision so clear that your fears become irrelevant. And that really struck a chord with me as far as making a clearer vision. Yes, I like to help people. Yes, I like to motivate. I'm interested in health and everything else, but I really need to hone in on that vision. Commitment, purpose, passion. Sherry Danzig's line, clarity plus activity equal Italy, was another one that I'd like to put on my bulletin board here. It was just all around a great event, and the leaders in this company are so generous with their time and the ability to really help you pinpoint what you might need to do. It was so much fun. We're hooked on the events. You truly do see the bigger picture.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Connie. Madeline.
Well, what I'm the most excited about is the milieu. It was like being in one whole 2.5 day, humans being more. And I did help with Jeff with that on a Sunday until about 2:30. And I'll highlight a few points. You came up with an agenda and some older, seasoned Royal Diamonds, some that haven't been active, that had roles. It was absolutely amazing from the first night all the way through. Connie just mentioned the clarity, being clear and seeing in the vision. Bernadette started vision, and Sherry Danzig ended with this cute skit with glasses to see. So the themes that you had in the agenda were carried through by each speaker, reviewed. And so there was this interrated reliability, flow, the concepts and the principles and what we must do are the same, but everybody's individual unique personality came through. So it was okay if a slideshow wasn't used or only one slide, or if there was a goof. And along with that, the humility of the growth that we each, those that have been tenured and around, have gone through, the transparency and admitting and what we've done wrong, but what we've learned. And the combination of the tenured plus corporate and that spirit and 5 pillars of health and our mission, and the new guests. The most joy for me, I've worked with Elaine Matthews for 20 years, and to see Elaine on that stage, and she made a last minute, if she's here, she can tell the story, but she made a last minute decision to change a flight from visiting relatives in California to making a stop in Orlando, only to be surprised by an executive who's ready to go to the top who showed up. And she met a lady next to her on the plane who ended up taking the spotlight away from our rock star Mike DiMuccio singing and dancing on at the karaoke. I mean, she is just on fire, and seeing her persistence. Those of us that have worked together as launch partners and have been on programs together, we met in a different way. We've gotten to know one another this way, but it was just one big humans being more, and it is the love that will absolutely propel us into the future. So there's that saying about the small group of like-minded people, and those here that weren't there, that were constantly texting back and forth. So this team was all there, present in spirit. And so that's enough.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Madeline. It's I love the reference to it feeling like just one big humans being more experience, because if anything, any of these great events should really facilitate that underlying purpose of what we're all about and why we're here. So now you mentioned Elaine Matthews being on fire, bringing an unexpected guest to the event, and I can see Elaine is on the line. Elaine, do you want to perhaps just unmute your line and share your story with us a little bit, please? I can't see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. There you go, and we can see you too. Great.
All right, thank you. Yeah, it was an interesting journey. At the last minute, like she said it correctly, I decided to go to Florida. And one of my executives decided to come down, and the lady I met on the airplane decided to show up Saturday afternoon around 3:30. And she got to hear the end of the presentation and was excited, and went to dinner with Dennis and Ruth Williams and sang at karaoke, and she just loved the NECAM people. So we're really excited about all this. It's just, just prayers are answered. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
You know, and we just got to keep continuing to talk to everybody, at least ask questions. And that's what I was doing. And finally she asked me why I was going to Florida and where I was going. And I told her the hotel. And she was interested, and she came.
Yeah.
So it was very, very interesting and just exciting, to say the least. And I was on stage for a little bit. Ruth Williams asked me to go up with Elaine Conley, and that was a little scary. You know, when I sat up there and looked out at everybody, but I saw a lot of smiling faces, and you know, I shared a little bit about the plan, and I am so excited that they dropped the O. And, you know, now all orders will count.
Yeah.
So I shared that because I've been in NECAM 21 years. And, you know, I really enjoyed all the presenters were just awesome. It was such a heart moment for everybody. My new lady, Valerie, that's the executive, she really enjoyed the people. And she was walking around talking to everybody. She was excited. The new lady, her name is Sislin, And she was even talking to people. She's an RN, retired. So we got her to talk to a couple nurses. I think Dave Rolfe impressed me a lot. I was looking for some answers onto how I could work towards Italy. And, he said to just go out and, you got to build a team. You got to talk to a lot of people. And he said, you want to get a message, a clear message about would you be interested in earning $500 to $5,000 a month? And just be sincere, but be very business minded, and just step to the plate, be confident in yourself, and just ask this question of everybody. He said, it's the business people that are going to get you, and the people that see this and want to make money and work the plan of finding three to find three to find three and keep going. He said, and you got to really deep in the leg. He shared how you just keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper, because that's what's going to really help you and build for you to win that trip to Italy or whatever contest you're after. I want to see my people on my team go, like Valerie and some of the others. So I was really thrilled with so many. Ben, you did such an awesome job. Oh, to put that together and all the hard work you did, and your wife, I got to meet her and she gave me my free bracelet, which I'm wearing. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be there, Ben. Thank you.
Excellent. Oh, I'm thrilled that you enjoyed it. And yeah, you raised just a really good point by way of announcements. Again, just to reiterate for those that are on the call that weren't there and that maybe haven't seen the announcements, a really important point that was announced by Jeff Isom was effective August 1st. This applies to North America and it applies to Europe as well. The Q in the QPPV and the QPGPV and the QOV, wonderful long acronyms here, is going away. What does that mean? It means that every order counts for qualification. If I place an order, if I'm brand new and I join the business and I buy a water pack, for example, and I want to buy it for personal use, or I want to buy it to retail later, or I want to buy it to demo to people, or I want to have it for a display for when I'm doing in-home meetings, whatever the purpose and intent of that is, I can buy that product at wholesale and it will count towards my qualification for rank advancement and for commissions. This is huge. This is huge in news because so many people were getting stuck at this step, not quite knowing how do I effectively move forwards with this necessity to have everything done at retail and not have those first few orders count. And it just removes that barrier and makes it nice and simple. And of course, if people were struggling to get past step number 1, they weren't going to make it to steps 4 and 5, were they? So what you will see now, I think, is a clearing of the path to make it so much more straightforward and easier to explain and easier to execute as a result of that wonderful piece of news. So really glad you mentioned that, Elaine. And again, I loved the fact I asked while I was on stage at one point for a show of hands, how many people in the room were there for the first time? And I think it was close to 20%. We had people in the room in Orlando that were first timers that had been in the business for less than a month and they'd made that commitment to come along. And there were people that weren't even signed up yet, that were prospects. People that had come, I know Mike DiMuccio brought someone from Canada as a prospect with him to the event. And there were people, like Elaine said, that they had met on the plane, they had met out and about while they were there in Orlando. They invited them to the meeting. One thing that I made sure I did, and you can know this for future reference, anyone that is coming that you meet while you're there, if you're going to be prospecting, I'd encourage everyone to do that. If you're going to be prospecting in Orlando and you find someone that is expressing interest, you just bring them straight in. Let's remove every barrier possible and let them have that experience so you can come away with someone enthusiastic and motivated to be a part of it. Because everyone that attended that was that guest came away feeling motivated, inspired, and wanting to be a part of it. So what a great place to prospect Yeah, and we talk about bringing people to these events, bringing our team, but we can also go there with an open mind like Elaine did and get to work while you're on the plane. And look at what happens. And lo and behold, yes, she appeared to give Mike, which is a rare thing to do, gave him a run for his money on the karaoke. He is the rock star of the karaoke, and yet, lo and behold, yeah, he had some competition on his hands. So perhaps we can get to Mike a little bit later on, and he can share some thoughts on that. But anyone else willing to share? I can see there's still a couple more people that attended that haven't said anything yet. Let me see. Dennis and Ruth. I can see Dennis and Ruth is there. I know your camera's off, but maybe just verbally. Is there anything you want to say verbally about your experience of the event?
Hi, Ben.
Hey, Dennis.
I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see me now, I guess. Yeah, that was an awesome event. We just really, really appreciated being there and being with everybody and having quite a few of our team members there. And I was excited to see Elaine, like you said, bring a guest there, and we had dinner with them. And yeah, Ruth and I really enjoyed that, and we also enjoyed karaoke. You weren't there when I was singing, but
I know I was gutted, but your reputation after that. I mean, from what I heard, Dennis, people were trying not to cry after you sang because he's
the country rock star.
It was such a romantic song you sang. Everyone's like, "Oh my goodness me!" So I heard all about it.
Directly to Ruth. Ruth. Yes.
Yeah, I've had some couple of close calls in my life, and that song is "If Tomorrow Never Comes." And,
yeah,
it almost makes me cry to think about it too. So that was awesome. But that was a great event, Ben and Kim. We really appreciate that and putting that on, all the effort that you go through for all of us. And yeah, we're looking forward to a great last half of this year and beyond for sure. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well,
again, what's neat about that little bit of feedback actually is the fun that we can have at these events. Yes, there's a lot of instruction, but the chance to get up there and do a little bit of karaoke. I was surprised. We had originally scheduled to have a DJ like we had last year and have a bit of a dance and what have you, but at the last minute we kind of changed and went with karaoke. And I missed the first half. I had a dinner meeting with Kurt and got the latter half of the karaoke. And as people were leaving, the feedback was, "Can we have this every year?" And they loved it. It was really well received. So Dee is asking, were there recordings? We didn't record the videos of the event, of the training. We do really want to emphasize that the best way to get the information is always going to be live. It's great to get the feedback like this, and I always want to, as soon as possible, give immediate feedback to those that couldn't make it. I'm mindful that there were some that had extenuating circumstances where it just wasn't possible, and there are some on the call that they just couldn't make it, and I have total respect for their dedication and their commitment, their devotion, and I also respect the valid reasons that can interfere. But wherever possible, we want to encourage people to have that live experience, because there is something about being in the room that even the conveyance of the words just doesn't do it justice. And my concern would be if we recorded everything and then made it available, even to those that had the legitimate reasons that they couldn't make it. If we did that, it diminishes the experience in comparison to those that were there in the flesh, because it's just a different experience when we're there together with people, engaging, interacting, and just having the atmosphere, the buzz. So Mike, on that point, I think it's perhaps relevant to kind of pull Mike up, because of course the next event that we've got is being hosted by Mike. It's going to be in Toronto. And this was one of the points that we kind of concluded on. One of the speakers said kind of, who's glad they came? And of course, everyone raised their hands. And then the question was asked, who have you wished that you brought more people with you? Yeah. And most of the hands went back up again. They're like, oh, yeah, I wish I'd kind of brought some more people with me. And we often feel that, don't we, when we come away from these events? If only I'd done this. Well, the great thing is we can eliminate that if only based on the fact that we've got another great event coming up. So Mike, do you want to just unmute your line perhaps and jump in and share your thoughts on Orlando, and then give us a couple of insights into Toronto perhaps? If you can, his camera is off. Let me see. If I unmute him, what's going to happen? Mike, can you hear us all right? Okay, I'm going to mute his line. Maybe we'll get him a little bit later on. He is on the line, but perhaps he's struggling with some technical difficulties. Let me just share one of my thoughts here as we reach the conclusion of the call. We kind of started out in regards to the agenda. Started out wide and then narrowed in and got more focused as the weekend went on. Oops, 1 second. As the weekend went on, and there was purpose in that. We wanted to start out with vision and with purpose, with who we are, and then drill down into strategies and tactics and techniques and skills and so on, so that it became a real clear focus. One of the things that Susan Carver mentioned in her message on Thursday night, and this was one of my big takeaways, was don't confuse your passions with your purpose. And I really like that, because that's a very, very strong point. Don't confuse your passions with your purpose. I'm very passionate about different genres of music. I was a jazz musician growing up when I was a teenager. So when I was younger, I was very passionate about jazz. That's all I listened to for like at least 4 or 5 years. But that's not my purpose in life, to play jazz. That's not it. You know, we've got to learn how to differentiate. So Susan talked about how to identify what our purpose is. But Kim and I were talking after the event. We were kind of sat down together, musing on this and kind of having our own kind of follow-up conversations and say, well, how do you, this is the big challenge that most people face when they find their purpose, because there are so many people in this world that are living good lives, happy lives perhaps to some degree, but they're not on purpose, or they're struggling to identify what that purpose is. And as a result, they can be misdirected. We said, how is it that someone reveals or identifies what that purpose is? And one thing that Kim identified as we were chatting, we kind of identified our own purposes, but then we discussed how we came across them. How did I discover my purpose? How did Kim discover hers? And I think I'm going to have Kim as a guest speaker coming up here in a couple of weeks on this subject, because her insights really kind of hit me between the eyes. She grew up in a city called Liverpool in England. Those of you that aren't familiar with British geography, Liverpool's perhaps most famous for the birthplace of the Beatles. That's where the Beatles came from. But she grew up, and perhaps every big city has this, in a very rough part of Liverpool. And I'm talking, perhaps if there was the Bronx of the northwest of England, it would probably be a little bit like that. She said it was very rare for her to be able to leave the front door of her house without getting some form of abuse thrown at her as a young girl. So walking to school, walking home from school, she shared an experience of walking over to her friend's place. And as her friend opened the door, the mother started yelling at another kid's mother simply because the other child was better looking than hers, and therefore there was this friction and tension and just this horrible kind of aggressive, just brutal, barbaric, animalistic slanging match, just this raw, just terrible behavior, which turned into a physical altercation right on this lady's doorstep. All she'd done is open the door to let her daughter go to school. And next thing you know, she's being assaulted on her own doorstep. And Kim kind of grew up with all of this around her all the time. The result was one of her goals became, I want to do so well in school that I can get out of here as soon as I possibly can. At the age of 16, she moved out of home. She did it when her mum had gone to Ireland, where her mum was born and had grown up, so that her mum wouldn't be upset and prevent her, or wouldn't interfere and prevent her from moving out. But she only moved to her grandmother's house, which was a couple of streets away, but she said there were no gangs where her grandmother lived between there and the school that she needed to walk to. Whereas living where her mum lived, she would get this confrontation every day. So she moved out of home, moved in with her grandmother at the age of 16, just to have a less traumatic walk to school on a daily basis. And that was kind of her start out in life. And her goal was, I want to do so well in school that I can get out of Liverpool and get away from this as soon as I can. And that's what she did. And what we identified was this, as we kind of shared our own experiences. I've had my own challenges, different to hers, and everyone has had their own challenges, different to each other's. But what we identified was that many of us will find our purpose staring back at us through our afflictions and our adversity. And if you want to know what your purpose is, you will often discover it where your adversity lies. Now, if you've coasted through life, perhaps, and you haven't had some of these wonderful, overwhelming tragedies that give people wake-up calls, and I think most people will have them at some way, shape, or form throughout their existence here on Earth. If you haven't had that, what do you do? What happens if you haven't had a terminal illness, or you weren't brought up, in a rough part of town, if you weren't bullied at school, or your parents didn't what if you had a good upbringing? What if everything went nice and smoothly and everything was a rose garden for you? What do you do then? This is my suggestion. You apply yourself to personal development. When you look yourself candidly in the mirror and apply yourself to mastering your own weaknesses of character, there you will find your own complexities and difficulties. Your own adversity will then reveal itself within you. And there you can find your purpose. And it might be to develop a greater sense of patience and compassion towards others. Because when you confront yourself squarely in the mirror, maybe you find that some of that is a little superficial in your life. Perhaps, yeah? Maybe I'm just pretending a little bit. Maybe it's social comfort that I'm projecting here, when internally there are things I really need to change. So we can find, this is my concluding point, we can find our purpose in life and in business will often be nestled in the afflictions and the adversity that we've experienced. And if we haven't had those big events, those catastrophes or what have you, then we will often find it when we look in the mirror of our character and try to pull out the weaknesses and vulnerabilities that lie within us. And when we truly confront ourselves there, then we will find plenty to work on and plenty of challenge. And if we can turn that into purpose, we will find some great good can come from it. I saw on the news the day that we left Orlando, an Olympic athlete from the States, him and his wife were talking about how their daughter had recently drowned in their back garden in their swimming pool. And it was unexpected, they weren't even outside in the garden. Somehow she'd managed to escape into the back garden. They had gates, they had all the safety precautions in place, but somehow tragedy struck and they were left with this set of circumstances. But the mother had found a friend who had experienced a similar ordeal, and they had teamed up together and said, we're going to turn this into our purpose. And we're going to go out there and we're going to inform, we're going to educate, we're going to inspire other families, other parents on how to avoid this and how to manage this, how to deal with it. And they took the tragedy and they turned it into purpose. And Viktor Frankl says this. He said, suffering ceases to be suffering when we find the meaning in it. Yeah. And so I would conclude with these thoughts, that in order to really succeed in business, we need to have a compelling purpose. This was one of the core fundamental messages of Orlando. We need to have a compelling purpose. It can't be superficial, ladies and gentlemen. It needs to have meaning. It needs to have real value. It needs to really pull at your heartstrings. It needs to be a cause, and that cause needs to be bigger than us. Find a way to connect to that. Maybe there has been some experiences in your life that will allow you, empower you to connect with it. If there haven't been, then let's dig into our characters and hold the mirror up and commit to ourselves to get into outside of our familiar zone, as Bernadette called it, outside of our comfort zone, into the uncomfortable zone, face our fears and confront ourselves and become a better person and make that our mission, which is really what Humans Being More is all about. Yeah. But let's get gritty with it. Let's make it count. So thank you very much. And again, it was fantastic seeing you there in Orlando these last few days. Look forward to seeing you at the next event. And for all of you that couldn't make it, I hope this has been a source of inspiration today. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.